I'm a dark-skinned man who says, no, I'm an African first, I'm an actor second, I am not a quote-unquote, I'm just an actor.
Wesley Snipes.
Warner Bros. looks at Oliver Stone, at JFK, and Kevin Costner. That is not the same way to look at Denzel Washington, myself, and Malcolm X.
Spike Lee.
Spike says a lot of things, you know. I really like Spike because I've come to realize that his passion sometimes overrides his mouth.
Whoopi Goldberg.
I mean, you know, I'm black, I'm African American, but I'm a filmmaker, you know.
John Singleton. The stars, the directors, leading a new wave in American movie making, join Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert on the Siskel and Ebert Special.
Why do a show about the new black cinema in America? Because it is the most exciting and vital movement in our mainstream national movie making. Most of these films come from the heart and from the streets, not from just some marketing gimmick to rope in audiences. That's why Roger and I went to France and to California to talk to 4 major players in the African-American cinema. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. One of the people we talked to was Whoopi Goldberg, a comedian who has become the top black actress in American movies. Her screen debut was in Steven Spielberg's powerful 1985 movie The Color Purple, and since then she has specialized in offbeat roles like cop and computer operator. She likes untraditional casting. She doesn't see any reason why a black actress can't play almost any character in the movies. She received an Oscar last year for playing a psychic in Ghost, and I caught up with her this year at the Cannes Film Festival.
Also in Cannes, Roger spoke with Spike Lee, the diminutive godfather of the new black cinema, a third-generation college graduate and graduate of New York University's film school. Lee began as an independent filmmaker with his surprise hit, She's Gotta Have It, and then proved to be a fresh voice from the streets with Do the Right Thing, the best film ever made about race in America. Selling everything from sneakers to blue jeans, Spike Lee is also one of the most influential style setters in the United States.
The Cannes Film Festival was also the launching pad for the remarkable career of young John Singleton, whose Boys in the Hood premiered there a year ago to worldwide acclaim. The story of a father trying to raise his son well despite the chaos of the inner city, Boys went on to become one of last year's most successful films and got Singleton Oscar nominations for screenplay and direction. In fact, he edged out Orson Welles to become the youngest person ever nominated as Best Director. Gene talked to him on the set of his new movie, Poetic Justice.
In Beverly Hills, I spoke to the hottest black actor of the moment, 29-year-old Wesley Snipes, currently starring in 2 acclaimed pictures, the box office smash White Men Can't Jump and The Water Dance, a drama laced with comedy about the disabled. Snipes has displayed a great range with roles as varied as a charismatic drug dealer in New Jack City and a put-upon architect in love with a white woman in Spike Lee's Jungle Fever.
All 4 of these artists live at a time when strong African-American images are common on TV and in the movies, but they grew up in times when that was not always true. We started out by asking all 4 of them about their movie memories and their childhood movie heroes. Do you remember the first movie that you saw that had black people on the screen?
God. I mean, all the Mae West movies had a black character.
I just love to work for you, Miss Lou.
Yeah?
You buy such pretty things, and all of them diamonds.
What'd you think about characters like that?
At the time, I thought she was very interesting. She was like nobody I knew, because I grew up in New York. You saw all kinds of people. But it never occurred to me that that was what I had to be.
There weren't any blacks, though, in the movies you were watching that you could think you would grow up to be, were there?
Well, I knew I'd never look like Dorothy Dandridge. I mean, I always knew that, but it never surprised me to see her, or to see Harry or Sidney or any of those guys. I mean, all the movies that Sidney did, he had all kinds of people around. I mean, Lilies of the Field. You never dealt with the fact that he was black. Here was this guy trying to get away from these crazy nuns. To Sir with Love. Here was this cat trying to bring something to himself, finding himself and meeting himself through these young people.
It seems you know so little and are so easily amused, I can look forward to a very happy time.
Can you remember the first black character that you really noticed in a film?
It was probably Sidney Poitier in Lilies of the Field. And I was furious. I must have been like 7, 8 years old, but I was like, man, lady for them nuts. Fix your car and leave. That was me. I wouldn't have stayed there the whole movie messing with these nuns.
Spike said he would have run from the nuns.
I didn't understand what my man was doing on the nuns anyway. He wasn't going to get laid, that's for sure. So at the age when I saw the film, it definitely didn't make no sense whatsoever.
I'm interested in who your heroes were when you went to the movies as a little kid, 5, 6 years old, 7 years old. I don't know who. Did you gravitate toward black actors as heroes, black characters, or white guys?
I was in the Reading Rainbow. You know, I was down with the Rainbow Coalition. I liked James Bond immensely. I was a heavy Elvis Presley fan. Heavy.
Look, Buster, you want some teeth knocked out? Just keep it up.
You scare me. Women beaters always scare me.
When was the first time you saw a black actor on the screen and you said, I love this guy. I want to be like this guy?
I don't know if I can say that and not at the same time express my ignorance. Because in my community, the guys who were the real successful guys that I saw around, they were the number runners, the pimps, the pushers. And so when I went to the movies and I saw JD's Revenge, you know, Cotton Comes to Harlem and Superfly, for a moment there, you gotta go, wow, that's my man. You know, I love that coat my man was wearing. Did you see that coat? He had all the women by him. He had money. You know, for a while, for a long time, that was the example. And those were the guys who were somewhat the guys to emulate. But then when I became a little bit more aware about who I was and what my people had contributed to the world, and especially art, my standards changed. When I was coming up, people I really looked up to were primarily Francis Coppola, George Lucas, and Steven Spielberg. That's because I grew up in a kind of like pop culture kind of thing. Media, films for me were entertainment. What happened for me was I got up in early high school, and my mother was like, why don't you go to this theater over here? You know, it shows a lot of different old films, you know. So I go to the theater, and I went to see Annie Hall and Bananas. Next week, me and my friend went to go see Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. And then I started seeing, you know, Taxi Driver and all these other stuff, right? And I was like, yo, what's up? This is something different, you know? And that's when I started really formulating my position and my stance in the way in which I was going to express myself as a filmmaker.
When I was growing up, between the movies they showed us in school assemblies and the movies we went to see, I saw a lot of movies about white heroes, baseball players, musicians, Glenn Miller, Red Grange. Where are those movies about black heroes?
For the most part, they're yet to be made. But we can go further now. Where are those stories in the history books? Everybody needs heroes.
Do you have a hero that you would like to make a film about someday?
Well, I've done it.
I know, but another one.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff. Toussaint Overture. Show him kicking Napoleon in the ass. You could still redo the Jackie Robinson story. That would be a great film. No African-American ever had to go through what Jackie Robinson went through. If Jackie Robinson failed, we're not talking about sports. We'd have been set back 20 years across the board. Politics, entertainment, everything. He had the weight of the entire race. You know, and it shows would probably end up what killed him, you know, with him dying of a heart attack.
Whose story would you like to be told?
Miles Davis. Adam Glenn Powell. Angela Davis. African people who made incredible contributions against incredible odds. Dr. Charles Drew. Here is a guy who founds and creates blood plasma, saves thousands and thousands of people's lives, but dies on the doorstep, on the foot of a hospital because he's black.
Today's movies, for young black kids watching television or going to the movies, have different kinds of characters in those, don't they?
Well, yeah, they reflect the times. They reflect the times. We live in a violent society. You are born an adult these days, and you have to deal with things like crossfire and getting knocked off as you're crossing the street. These are things kind of gunshots, you know. You never heard them.
Is there something that people who work in the movies can do?
If movies like Boys in the Hood, which has a positive message, and says that, no, you don't have to accept this as the only way to go, that's good, because those are movies that are talking to these kids in a way that they will understand, doesn't talk down to them.
What am I supposed to do? Fool roll up, try to smoke me? I'm gonna shoot the mother. If you don't kill me first.
You're doing exactly what they want you to do. You have to think, young brother, about your future.
We also need to see movies by filmmakers who have black characters who are not jive-talking, gum-chewing, head-moving people. You know, that's what can be done.
You know, they perceive that all black culture consists of thieves, thugs, pimps, pushers.
If it's possible to single out one day when the black new wave of movies was launched, that was probably the day in May of 1986 when Spike Lee's sassy, energetic She's Gotta Have It premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. Lee went to France as an unknown film student and came back as the leader of a movement that tried to look at blacks in America with a new frankness and originality. But as Whoopi Goldberg points out, it took a long time to get there.
You know, it's an evolutionary process. We started with, you know, in the early years with things like Cabin in the Sky.
Remember, you're a lady now.
I know it, sugar. I'm just trying to impress him with that thing.
And then we moved on to things like Carmen Jones.
How can a lady drink alone? How can a lady dance alone?
And then we went to Blackula and Superfly. And now we're at the Boys in the Hood and She's Gotta Have It sort of phase.
Chain snatcher. I didn't snatch this. I bought this. This is 18 karat gold. I did not snatch this. What do you know? You're a Celtic fan.
We become very popular cinematically every about 25 years.
I think that what She's Gotta Have It really showed a lot of young black filmmakers that it could be done. I'm not trying to take sole credit for it. I would never do that, but She's Gotta Have It made it concrete to people that, you know, we can do this film. We can make films that can be made outside of Hollywood. And we have to do it. We can't rely on anybody else.
How about looking at your film, specifically, Boys in the Hood, and say, here's a scene that we were able to shoot this way, whereas 20 years ago, you would never have seen the scenes.
20 years ago, you would never see a scene with the father and the son sitting on the porch waiting for the cops to come. The father confronts the cop, and the cop assaults not only the father but the son by referring to his own people, you know, in a negative context.
You know, it's too bad you didn't get him. Be one less nigga out here in the streets we have to worry about. Hey, little man. How you doing? Going in the house, Trey. Go on. Something wrong?
Something wrong? Yeah. It's just too bad you don't know what it is. Brother.
And you never would have saw that 20 years ago.
Let's take New Jack City. How about that?
Well, I think all of the stuff in New Jack, I mean, even my approach to my character was something new. You know, it's very easy to play a drug dealer from the perspective of, look, all I want is the money and the drugs and that's it. But it's different to add 3 and 4, 5 dimensions to the character.
And what motivated this guy? What are some of these extra flavors in it?
He felt as though the hypocrisy of the society that says just say no to drugs, but at the same time on the high levels do major drug deals, import, export, etc., was hypocrisy, and that it meant nothing to the people in the hood.
Okay, I don't understand it. First, you want to be a stick-up kid, right? But then you got shot. Now you're a base head. You're all messed up, man. Your life is trash.
15 years ago, we would have just gotten the stock bad guy figure.
Absolutely.
Why aren't there more films about black middle-class life in America?
Because that's not the scene that America wants to necessarily see, I'm told. Though Cosby did very well being middle class in America.
As somebody who sees every movie that comes out,
And you do.
and I do, I realize that if all you knew about America is what you saw in the movies, you would think that a very large percentage of black people were either criminals or, in a few cases, were police.
That's what I mean, you see it on the news. That's what the news shows you as well. That's what we are perceived to be.
How does an industry made up of hundreds of different people making hundreds of different decisions somehow agree that this is an image of black America that is commercial and no other image is commercial?
Because that's what's economically worked.
They perceive that all black culture consists of thieves, thugs, pimps, pushers, men who are walking out on their women, women who don't like men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, men who abandon their children. And that's entertaining for many, many ways, for many, many reasons to this society. That's why they keep making those types of films.
I wonder if there is an audience for it. I'll call it the black middle class audience. In Mo Better Blues, film that you were in, isn't there a nightclub scene where they say, "Where's the black audience in the nightclub?" Right?
You know, if we had to depend upon black people to eat, we would starve to death. I mean, you've been out there. You're on the bandstand. You look out into the audience. What do you see? You see Japanese. You see West German. You see Slabovic, anything. But except our people, man, it makes no sense.
We don't support our own because we're too busy chasing the Joneses. We're too busy trying to appease the dominant, or the quote-unquote dominant culture.
One thing that you've done is you've shown middle-class characters on the screen in Jungle Fever and More Better Blues. That's very rare, though. When we think of black cinema in America, we often think of violence and crime and poverty and drugs over and over again.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. The black filmmakers, it is really upon our shoulders to diversify the subject matter. And you really can't go into thinking, well, I'm going to make this film because that's the only type of film they make and that's the only film they're going to fund. And this is not a knock on the films, but Boys in the Hood, Straight Outta Brooklyn, and Juice, we've seen that. And let me reiterate once again, for Matty Rich, Ernest, and John, it's not a comment on the work. But we've seen that, and there's so much more to tell.
You don't wake up and say, damn, I'm black. You wake up and say, hope I get a gig.
Continuing our special show on the new black movies, we talked with these filmmakers about what it's like to be black and successful in Hollywood. Are they still second-rate citizens? Spike Lee thinks so, based on his battles with Warner Brothers to get all the financing he wanted for his new film, Malcolm X, which was completed only with last-minute investments from millionaire black entertainers.
Is there anything that continues to make you real mad about the conditions that you make films under?
Yes, it's just a double standard. When Warner Brothers looks at Oliver Stone, JFK, and Kevin Costner, that is not the same way to look at Denzel Washington, myself, and Malcolm X. Just isn't true.
But they're making your film.
Barely.
Wouldn't they argue that there might be more people interested in JFK than Malcolm X?
Yeah, and I can argue there'd be more people interested in Malcolm X than Nothing But Trouble, which Warner Brothers spent $45 million for and gave Dan Aykroyd. Dan Aykroyd never directed a film in his life, and he got $45 million to do Nothing But Trouble.
They're serving dogs?
No. Hot dogs. Dutch country Herefords. Prize winners.
Nothing But Trouble was a pretty bad film.
It sucked. My attitude is, and it hurts my heart, but I'm still not treated as good as the person that would have directed something like Problem Child,
You, who have just had an Oscar nomination, a double Oscar nomination, supplanting Orson Welles, a film that is the most profitable on a percentage basis of any movie of last year, who are going to cause more people, young kids, because of your appearance on the Oscar show and all your acclaim, to go to USC Film School. You bet. And you said that you feel that you will not get the same breaks as the director of Problem Child. And I'm stunned.
I just think, you know, what happens the day that I make a film that doesn't automatically make its negative return back? You know, do you think I'll be offered $20 million to do another film just like that?
You don't have to be white to understand what people go through. What I mean by that is, why couldn't John Singleton, and I love Jonathan Demme, so when I say this, I don't mean to disparage Jonathan at all, but why couldn't John Singleton have done Silence of the Lambs? See, then I'll feel like we're there, like we are a part of the film community and not considered black. You always hear there's no work for black actors in Hollywood. Well, that's what they tell you. But I don't go in. I let them explain to me that I'm black. See, I've been black all my life, so I don't think about it. You don't wake up and say, damn, I'm black. You know, you wake up and say, hope I get a gig.
I'm a dark-skinned man who says, no, I'm an African first, I'm an actor second, I am not a quote-unquote, I'm just an actor. I don't want to be considered a black actor, I want to be just an actor. No, I come right off the back and say, when I wake up in the morning, I see black first, and then realize that, oh, I like acting too. You know, I'm very clear on that.
You just mentioned the issue of the fact that you are dark-skinned. That's very fresh about your stardom, because I think you know very well that that has not been the history of blacks in the movies.
Absolutely. I truly believe that it has a lot to do with the level of work that I'm trying to produce. You know, I can't think of anything else. I don't think it's because, you know, dark is in, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. That's scary because that means it's a fad. In a little while, when a new fad comes in, then I'm out of the picture.
Isn't it exciting for you to see Wesley Snipes be as hot as anybody right now in the country, because he is dark?
When was the last time a real chocolate brother came out with his intensity and his focus, right?
I know.
Who could act like that, who could command the screen, walk on the screen, you know exactly what that person is feeling, you know, and you're into that character.
Look, the brothers don't wait to get paid. Money talks. Runs the marathon. So, see ya. And I wouldn't want to be there.
And he's successful. You know? Hey.
And he is sexual.
Yeah, he's not castrated like they castrated black men for so many years in the film.
Why is it that there aren't very many movies that really develop erotic scenes involving black people? When you talk about the history of sex in cinema, blacks are underrepresented.
Because chances are, if you have someone like me in the movie, you will have to explain to some studio head somewhere why I'm making out with Rutger Hauer. But the movie I'm doing now, Ted Danson and I have a great, wonderful love scene. Whether it lasts throughout the life of the film, I had a great makeout scene with Sam Elliott in Fatal Beauty. Zip, gone, out of there, you know.
And you had real good chemistry with Elliott.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Why has it been that traditionally movies have really shied away from frank sexuality when it comes to African American people? I mean,
because generally, white American males are intimidated with black sexuality.
But do you think that process still applies to box office and to movie audiences in 1992?
I'm telling you. I think the white male and there's something about the sexuality of black males that it bothers them. You know, through literature, through film, through everything, our stories have all been distorted.
On the Siskel and Ebert hour-long special, we're talking to 4 key players in the emergence of the black new wave of filmmaking. Director Spike Lee, actress Whoopi Goldberg, director John Singleton, and actor Wesley Snipes. And as this generation of African-American filmmakers grows popular and powerful, they raise questions about white directors who also want to explore black themes. Most of the time, they put out the welcome mat for whites who want to make movies about blacks. But when the Canadian director Norman Jewison wanted to direct a biography of Malcolm X, Spike Lee said nothing doing. This was one story that could be told only by another black. You fought for the right to make Malcolm X, and at one point Norman Jewison was connected to it, and you felt this story should be made by a black filmmaker. Do you believe, however, that in general, blacks and whites can make films about each other?
Yes, I believe that wholeheartedly. I've never said that only black people direct black subject matter and only white direct white subject matter. I do feel, however, on specific cases, it's needed. No one can tell me that Francis Ford Coppola being Italian American did not enhance the Godfather trilogy.
Hey, Mikey, why don't you tell that nice girl you love her? I love you with all of my heart.
No one can tell me that Martin Scorsese being Italian American did not help Mean Streets, Raging Bull, and Goodfellas.
It was Michael's favorite. I was making ziti with the meat gravy, and I'm planning to roast some peppers over the flame.
Because they're Italian Americans, and the same thing, I think, applies with Malcolm X in this case.
Spike says Norman Jewison can't make Malcolm X. Now, what about this theory that there are some kinds of films that some kinds of people can make and other kinds of people can't make them?
Soldier Story is a perfect example. I thought Soldier Story was a brilliantly, beautifully done film.
That's nothing but white officers lying to protect two of their own, and you know that.
White man did it. Color Purple, for all of the things that upset people about, it's a really nice film. It's a really beautiful film. You know, Spike says a lot of things, you know. I really like Spike because I've come to realize that his passion sometimes overrides his mouth, and he doesn't really think of what he's talking about.
The issue of Spike Lee saying that only a black man should direct Malcolm X.
He's right.
And is the reason, I would always think the reason would be simply, hey, we're only going to get one shot at telling this story. It's too important to screw it up.
It's that. It's also that, you know, through literature, through film, through everything, our stories have all been distorted.
How about The Color Purple? Does that qualify?
Well, The Color Purple is a certain case. I mean, you know, it's just like, you know, who's to say who's going to do the book right? And when I saw the movie, you know, I was like, you know, oh, it's a fairly good movie, right? But even if I did it, right, it'd probably even be more brutal than it even came out.
Only black men can direct black films.
Baloney. Absolute baloney. It's very, very dangerous. Because then now you remove yourself from quality and you're going on this. You feel you got to do a WPA or you got to get out there and, you know, we have to appease the black people, you know, and only black people understand black people. In certain cases, yes. But it's a difference when you have an artist. And the artist is about being the best artist he can be, as open and having as wide a repertoire of things that he can draw from.
Black directors don't necessarily have anything different than a white director. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to be white to direct. You don't have to be black to direct. You only have to be open. You cannot limit, I believe, you cannot limit or allow yourself to be limited by color. It's much too easy not to get the work.
White folks get upset. They get really, really upset. Can I just watch the movie, please?
Continuing our special show on the new black cinema, one thing that seems to keep some whites from enjoying these movies is the feeling that black audiences are more rowdy than whites. It may be noisy inside and outside the theaters, some whites fear.
Are there differences between black and white audiences, as there are in Night and Day, as there are in Ketchup and Mustard, as there are in Left Foot, Right Foot? Yes, absolutely, categorically. See, white folks, they get upset because of the call and response to the to the screen. That is a part of African culture. White folks get upset. They get really, really upset. Can I just watch the movie, please? Can I? And it's like, wait a minute. You know, if we don't like it, that's bullshit. If we like it, yeah, right on. That's happening. It's happening. I like that. You see that? I like that. You know?
I don't like people talking, have a conversation about something else, right? I don't mind when people, audience is into my film and has a response like, hey, yo, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? You know, oh, guys, you know, she's going in there. Why is she going in there? Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, I can't look. I love that. It means that they're emotionally into the film.
When a film opens that might have a potential for crossover, do you think there's a problem with white perceptions they might not be safe with the audience that they're going to find when they go to see that film?
Well, that is a problem because this is something this is a perception that's been shaped by the media. The same thing they did with rap music, where they associated violence with rap music. The media's done it with black subject matter. We lost a lot of money on Do the Right Thing because of the alleged riots that are going to happen.
When Malcolm X opens, for example, are people going to be afraid to go on opening night?
I hope not.
A lot of white audiences are afraid to go to some of those movies because they think that the audience that they'll be joining might be dangerous to them.
Well, that's because that's what they've heard. That's what has been reported. You know, they don't say to you that, 500 kids got pissed off because they bought tickets and couldn't get into the theater and couldn't get anybody to explain what the hell was going on. That's what happened in Westwood.
Yeah, I know.
But nobody said that, you see. What they said was New Jack City incited these kids to riot. Not explaining that these were kids who were standing in line, who had tickets and had bought them in advance and had been waiting to get in, and the doors were suddenly locked because nobody bothered to come out and say, listen, we overbooked, we'll add another show.
It really pissed me off last summer when my film came out and some things happened and some people got hurt. And instead of looking at the root of the problem, people pointed to the films or the works as the problem. I think if you're smart, you'll know where to go, where the trouble is, and you'll know when the trouble is not. When I grew up in my neighborhood, you grow up and you know where trouble is and where trouble is not going to be, and you learn how to head it off. That's the responsibility of not only the viewer, but the people who are showing films.
While LA was burning down, everything Malcolm X was saying was an explanation for what was happening in LA at that time.
One of the most jarring recent events in this country, the riots in Los Angeles, may have quite an impact on movie making simply because of where they occurred on the doorstep of Hollywood. As we continue our special look at the people in the forefront of African-American movie making, we explore the question of how the riots will affect the business and culture of Hollywood and America.
What you didn't see on television was that it wasn't just black people rioting and looting. It was blacks, Hispanics, whites. This comes from people saying enough.
It's like if all those people in Los Angeles did riot, then nobody would have ever acknowledged that there's a large amount of injustice in this country.
But I'm quite sure that there would be a number of films and a number of stories that have come down the chute that try to deal with the complexity of why people uprise.
If I had a garbage can amongst me, I might have thrown a garbage can through a window also. I picked up the paper yesterday. Mickey Rourke is blaming me and John Singleton for the riots in L.A.
Have you had a response to that?
He's a redneck cracker who doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, were we and John responsible for the Watts riots? John wasn't born and I was 7 years old. It makes sense because he hangs around with, Hell's Angels anyway. So that's the type of mentality he has. And he should take a shower and a shave at the same time.
I've heard that there are now half a dozen projects being shopped around this film festival attached to the events in Los Angeles, including some projects that had already been turned down but now are hot again. Is it possible that riots work?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's what it takes to get people to listen. But if you're mute, you have to do something radical. Do I think that was the right way to go? Not for 4 days. Certainly a little hoopla in the street, but you do what you have to do to get the point across.
How do you think the riots will affect the movie industry?
You're going to see a situation where a lot of people are going to try to apply or take from this experience and put it in their movies. I think a lot of movie owners will be a lot even more so skeptical about bringing quote-unquote black films in. Because they'll figure, that's just going to be a part of the element, and I've seen what they did in the riots, and they're probably still mad, so when they come to the movie, maybe they're going to just tear my whole movie theater up.
So we're going to get a more segregated booking pattern than we already have.
Absolutely. I don't doubt that one bit.
It would be nice if it affects American movies in a way in which people try not to gloss over their subjects in the films that they make and try to deal with the truth. You know, I was really, despite what people feel about Oliver Stone, I was really happy when I saw JFK because of the fact that he was looking at history from a point of view in which a small minority of people view things.
The guy couldn't do the shooting. Nobody could. And they sold this lemon to the American public.
Hopefully that the country is going towards a time where more alternate points of views will be more accepted.
The riots occurred as we speak a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
Have you made any change?
In my script?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please say specifically what.
Well, I'll just say I'll be the first movie to come out that will emotionally deal with the aftermath of the riot and because I live here, I know the causes and everything.
Do you think that anything that happened in L.A. is going to change the movies that we see in the next few years?
Well, hopefully, and make people be more, maybe want to deal with realism a little more and the world that we live in.
What were some of the thoughts that went through your mind while you were watching television during the L.A.?
Well, I was in Los Angeles during the L.A. riots, and we were showing Warner Brothers the film Malcolm X. It was amazing. While L.A. was burning down, everything Malcolm X was saying was an explanation for what was happening in L.A. at that time, and we're talking 27 years back, and nothing has changed.
I would make it mandatory that you can't spend all your times in Morton's, Spago's, and the Palm restaurant.
On the subject of the new black cinema, black Americans are notoriously unrepresented in the upper echelons of management of the Hollywood studios. And so, we thought we'd look into the future of American movies by asking these filmmakers to speculate on what they might do if they became a motion picture studio chief. If you were the head of a studio, what would be some of the changes you'd make?
Most of my studio execs, it would be mandatory, absolutely mandatory, that they spend half of their week in the culture. And whatever culture it is that the writers are writing about. I would make it mandatory that you can't spend all your times in Morton's, Spago's, and the Palm restaurant. Because only the people that come there are the same people that's in that closed, myopic community. And they don't know. They give opinions based upon the stereotypes and the movies that they've already made. They probably all wouldn't work for me. They probably run like, Snipes is crazy. He actually wants me to go down to Crenshaw and live in Crenshaw. I'm not gonna do that. Where am I gonna get my shirts pressed?
Tomorrow you get a new job. You're the head of a major studio. What do you do?
Clean house. I be chopping heads left and right. I get some color in there, some pigmentation.
You see any ways that the studios waste money?
Some of the money that these actors are getting is ridiculous. The guy got $3 million for the script of Basic Instinct.
You won't learn anything I don't want you to know.
Yes, I will. And I'll nail you.
I just got a bulletin.
Yes.
You've been put in charge of a major studio.
Yes.
What's your production slate look like for the next 12 months? What are you going to do?
Probably half movies that you sort of know people are going to be really excited about, and half where you know that when they're all done, your job may be on the line.
Do you have a story? Do you have a character a hero, a piece of history, a project?
I'm hoping to do with and it's not real yet, but I'm hoping to get An Affair to Remember, which I'm hoping to do with Gerard Depardieu.
No more tears.
I told you that's what beauty does to me. We're heading into
changed our trust today.
Because those are the movies where we start dealing with people as people and love is love. Because love doesn't care. Love doesn't care about color. When you make love to somebody, you don't think, oh, you're black or you're white. It's just, oh, you're good. And, oh, I'm glad to be here with you.
Let's say I make you the head of a big studio.
What I would do if I was the head of a studio, and to all you people who are heads of studios right now, I hope you're listening, I would look at what's going on in the country right now, and I would think in terms of what hasn't been done on the American screen. And I would do my darndest to make sure that that got to the screen.
What are some other things that are not being dealt with?
I think that art should imitate life more. You see, there was a time in which films were made in which things would happen that would only happen in the movies, right? And
yes,
there's some
fantasy.
Yeah, but there was a time where things would happen that would only happen in the movies. Now we're in a time in which the culture doesn't reflect that. You know, we don't need that. That which only would happen in the movies happens in the movies. People don't want to see that. Why do you think we have so many reality-based shows on television? People crave reality, even though in some ways it affects them psychologically and emotionally. They crave it.
Well, this much I know is true. The Hollywood movie scene would not be any less interesting. The movies would not be any less interesting if one of these people had the chance to become a studio.
Well, the movies have become a lot more interesting because these people are making movies, because they're making movies about America today and not about the kind of cotton candy fluff that so many Hollywood movies are about. People who live in suburbs that never existed doing things that nobody we know would ever do or ever say.
Here's the question. Is there something that was said by any of these people that surprised you and you thought was exciting?
Well, I think that Wesley Snipes gets a lot of points in my book for being very frank about the fact that some theaters and some exhibitors and some exhibition patterns are discriminating against these movies, possibly because they're afraid that they will attract audiences that are dangerous. And that is an issue that can't be overlooked, because there have been some incidents of violence on the opening days of some of these black movies. That would be tragic if these movies, because of that process, lost their access to the wider audiences. And I think it's very good that every movie we talked about on this show is available on home video, because that's a way that these movies are getting their message into a wider American audience.
I think that home video is an excellent way to reconnect with some of these films. We forget how few people have seen some of these pictures, particularly fans of Spike Lee. I know very few have seen his picture School Days, set on a black college campus, and how blacks can be destructive toward each other. School Days is a good film, and you can see it on home video.
And you know, Whoopi Goldberg is kind of the queen of home video. She's one of the top rating people in all of the stores all over the country. And you could look at her films, and also, for example, New Jack City, which a lot of people didn't see in theaters. A great performance by Wesley Snipes. But what did you find out by talking to these people? What surprised you the most?
Well, I think the exciting challenge made by Wesley Snipes again for the executives to live in the milieu that they're going to make films about. And I will put it not on a social basis, not on doing charity work, but on an economic basis. The carrot is there. These films are scoring real big with an audience that is very loyal to moviegoing. And I would argue that there are other stories on the street, in the Latino community, in the Korean community, in the Italian community, because Spike Lee is right. That's where the excitement came with Coppola and Scorsese. I would say that film executives ought to get out in the streets and live around in America. Well, they're going to make much more exciting films.
I think in actual terms, very few people are likely to leave Beverly Hills in order to live in South Central Los Angeles. But the fact is, they could at least be interested in those communities, because let's face it, American movies today are in the hands of the wealthiest class of people that this nation has ever created, and they all live in a tiny enclave and talk only to each other.
That's it for this special show on the new black cinema. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more new movies. I wonder who they'll be directed by. Until then, the balcony is closed.
Rice-A-Roni. Any day of the week, the flavor can't be beat. Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. Presenting now by Armatron. Stunning, fashion-forward designs that combine the very latest upscale styling with the superb quality long associated with Armatron.